Hey guys, it's Nick, and this is your Friday New Product Post. I'll be doing the Friday New Product Post while Rob is out of town on vacation, so let's see what we've got. So the first product we have is this MOSFET Power Controller. Now, this is kind of an interesting product for us because it's sort of a crossover. It's basically just a breakout board for an in-channel MOSFET, but it also has sewable pads on it, so you can use it in an e-textiles project. What a MOSFET allows you to do is to control a higher power current source with a low power controller like your Arduino microcontroller. And we actually developed this for use in a future e-textiles kit where we're going to need to control possibly some fans or maybe some heaters, and the Arduino, the LilyPad Arduino, just cannot source enough current to run those sort of things. So the way you use this board is really simple. You just plug a lithium polymer battery into this JST connector, and then you hook up the input to one of the digital outs on your microcontroller. And then whatever you want to power hooks up to the output right here. And then whenever this pin goes high, it basically turns on a switch and lets the battery power flow from your battery to your application. And you can draw as much current from that battery as the battery will let you, and you're not limited by what the microcontroller can source. So it's a really good product for trying to get sort of a higher powered thing like a heater or a fan or a really bright LED to run off of your Arduino. Next, we have the brand new Mux Shield II from Mayhew Labs. But before we get into the details of this, it's time to play Mux Revolution. These two guys behind me are playing our own version of Dance Dance Revolution that we call Mux Revolution. The reason we call it that is because what makes it possible is the new Mux Shield from Mayhew Labs. This is the Mux Shield II, and it allows us to get all of these inputs and outputs. You can see all these lights, displays, the buttons they're stomping on. All of that is all connected back to a single Arduino Uno. That's obviously something you normally wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have a multiplexer hooked up to be able to take all of that I/O and jam it into that microcontroller. Instead of a television screen, I've got a whole bunch of arrows that I cut out of acrylic on our laser cutter and then put on this piece of board and backlit with LEDs. Each of those LEDs goes back to the Mux Shield, and so I can control all of those using one of my rows of 16. I've also got 8 pedals, 4 for each player, and those are going into another row which is acting as an input. And I've got all of that going back to my Arduino sketch that's basically moving these lights down the row, and then when they get to the bottom row, like if they got to the bottom of your screen on Dance Dance, then you have to hit that corresponding pedal. Every time you hit a corresponding pedal, it sends a score pulse to one of the OpenSegment displays that I'm using to keep score. The OpenSegment in this case ended up coming in handy like crazy because I don't have to write any of the code that actually increments that board. All I have to do is send it a pulse whenever I want to add one to the score because it has a built-in counter function. So the Mux Shield II from Mayhew Labs is an upgrade of their original Mux Shield. And what they've done is they've moved a lot of the pins from the top of the shield, where you couldn't get to them if you stacked something on top, over to the side. So you can see they've moved all the pins over to these 3 rows of 16 headers. Now this is one that I have already soldered stackable headers to and soldered some right angle headers to. But when you get it, it's just the bare board like this with all the components on it but no headers. So when you pick this up, make sure to pick up some stackable headers as well, and then some way to connect to these. What the Mux Shield actually allows you to do is to connect up to 48 digital inputs, digital outputs, or analog inputs to your normal Uno style Arduino. So normally an Arduino doesn't have anywhere near that many outputs or inputs, so this really really expands the capabilities of your microcontroller. And the cool thing about this version of the board is that it actually allows you to select which of these pins are going to be inputs and which ones are going to act as outputs, and you can control it in the software. So you can actually write it into your Arduino sketch whether you want something to be an input or an output. And the way it works is that there are 3 rows of 16 pins on the end of the board here, and you can select what each row is going to be. So you can have 16 digital inputs and 32 digital outputs, or 16 analog inputs, 16 digital outputs, 16 digital inputs. Any combination like that is fine. You can't have half a row be something and then half a row be something else. It's just not set up that way. But because of all of this adjustment that you can do, there is actually sort of a problem for some stacks of shields because it takes a lot of pins to control all of those settings. But what they've done really clever of them to do this is they've put these solder jumpers on the bottom of the board, which allows you to actually set in hardware what you want each of these rows of headers to be, and then you can disconnect them from the pins and free those up so that you don't have to worry about interactions with other shields that might be above this on your stack. So if you have way too many buttons or way too many LEDs that you need to get hooked up to your Arduino, definitely look into one of these. It'll make your life a whole lot easier. Well, that's what we've got for this week. As always, check the post below for more new products, and I will see you again next week. Thanks for watching.